Hey there, I'm Sienna and today I'm here in Arthur's Pass in the heart of the Southern Alps in the South Island of New Zealand. The Southern Alps create a great diverse landscape. It's a significant barrier dividing two vastly different environments, the East Coast and the West Coast. If you were to travel from the East Coast over the Southern Alps into the West Coast, you would very quickly travel through a whole lot of different environments. Starting off in the Canterbury coastal plains, moving into the barren backcountry before moving up into this rugged alpine environment. Once summiting the pass, you will drive down into dense rainforest before popping out in the wetlands of the West Coast. As well as creating the diverse landscape we have here in the South Island, the Southern Alps also have had a huge impact on native flora and fauna species living in the area. The Southern Alps in New Zealand were named after the famous European Alps. Much like the Southern Alps' big brother, it was created by the collision of two tectonic plates, the Indo-Australian plate and the Pacific plate. When these two plates collided, a geological process called subduction occurred. This happens when there are two plates and one of them is denser or heavier than the other one. When they collide, the denser or heavier one is going to push under the lighter one, leaving that one exposed and uplifted above the sea. In this case with the Southern Alps, the Pacific plate was the one that was pushed up and it left exposed. Because of the nature of the subduction and the Pacific plate being pushed on top of the Indo-Australian plate, the westerly side of the Southern Alps is steeper than the east. The Southern Alps lie on a super restless part of the Earth's crust. With very high tectonic plate movement and extreme weather patterns, this place is by no means sitting still. The boundary of the two plates is called the Alpine Fault. Because of the frequent movement between the two plates, the Alpine Fault is susceptible to significant ruptures every 300 years. As well as earthquakes moving this area around, this range of spectacular mountains is also still being uplifted at a phenomenal rate. The uplift in the Southern Alps is some of the fastest in the world, with an average amount of uplift being a centimetre a year. This is because of the massive amount of compressional strain between the two plates. However, there are a few factors that are opposing the uplift of these mountains. These are the actual uplift itself and the quick thawing of rock at the top of the mountains. This causes the rock to split and crumble and come down. The other factor is weather. Wind and rain erode the top of the mountains, which is faster than the uplift itself. Due to the steep nature of the Southern Alps, altitudinal zonation in vegetation is very evident. These plants have adapted to be able to grow in a very harsh environment with infertile soils and extreme weather conditions. Especially once out of the bushline, this alpine environment is barren and unforgiving. Many of the alpine plants up here on the main divide have similar characteristics which allow them to thrive in the environment that they're in. As you can see, most of these plants are low-lying with deep root systems. This allows them to exploit all food sources while also keeping them in the ground, resisting high winds and repetitive snowfall. Species are often growing in highly unfertile soil or even sometimes shattered rock. Many of these flora species use advanced techniques to ensure they have an adequate source of water 12 months a year. Plants like this Spaniard here have very particular shaped leaves which allow it to store water for dry periods. Once upon a time, before the creation of the Southern Alps, these plants would have all looked very different. They likely would have been living in lower altitude areas and have had different characteristics. Because of the creation of the Southern Alps, these little guys have adapted and become alpine plants conditioned to the environment up here. The Southern Alps is home to the only mountain parrot in the world, the kea. Back when New Zealand first split from Gondwana land about 70 million years ago, there was a bird that came with it, called the proto-kaka kakapo. This bird was the ancestor of the kaka, kea and kakapo. During the next 65 million years, this ancestor evolved due to the environment it was in, into the kakapo and the proto-kaka. About 5 million years ago, the bird named the proto-kaka roamed this part of the country. The proto-kaka is the ancestor of the kea and the kaka. The kea species developed from the podokaka due to the uplift of the Southern Alps. The kea took advantage of this new developing alpine environment and adapted to suit it. Now the kea remains the only alpine parrot in the world. The creation of the Southern Alps has clearly had a massive impact on New Zealand native species, giving us one of the highest numbers of endemic species in the world. Because New Zealand is a young and active environment, all these species have adapted in unique ways to be able to live in it. The uplift of the Southern Alps has created many new species of flora and fauna that are found only here in the South Island of New Zealand. Thanks for hanging out with me in Arthur's Pass and exploring some of the massive impacts the lifting of the Southern Alps has had on the environment and biodiversity here.